from the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. First item on the agenda, approval of the, we didn't have any minutes, did we? That's what I thought. All right, I'll just make sure I didn't miss them in my package. So we don't have any approval of the minutes. Report of the town manager, Mr. Warner.
Thank you. Mayor Black, members of council, tonight I kind of want to report on a procedural matter that seems to be of interest. Basically, since there still seems to be quite a bit of interest in the town's discussion of potential surplus properties, I want to take this opportunity to provide some clarification in the public setting and on the record. The town issued a request for proposals for real estate brokerage services related to the sale of properties that might be identified as surplus, and at its regular meeting on October 25th, 2022, Town Council authorized a contract with Lyons Team Realtors. However, to date, no contract has been executed. Since that time, the town has received private communications from two individuals, Beck Stanley and Jeff Witt, each indicating a desire to purchase town-owned property in the vicinity of the Wheats Valley Reservoir. Town Council took no action on either request. I have met personally at his request with Bedford Regional Water Authority Executive Director Brian Key to discuss the authority's potential interest in obtaining town-owned property in the vicinity of the reservoir. However, no action has been taken. Furthermore, my understanding is that the current official position of the town is that this is not a priority issue, and we will be taking no action at this time with regard to any town-owned properties within the vicinity of the Wheats Valley Reservoir. In the further interest of clarity, however, I would also like to note that in conjunction with the fiscal year 23-24 budget proposal, I do intend to propose the transfer of two town-owned properties on South Street near its intersection with Ridge Street to the Redevelopment Housing Authority in lieu of a direct financial contribution, but that's something you'll talk about as part of the budget process. And that will conclude my report for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Any questions, comments from Mr. Warner? No? All right. Move on to the next item on the agenda, appearances before council. I know we've got a couple of people here for a presentation, but is there anybody signed up for public comment, anything? No? Okay. Keep moving along. Council comments. Bruce, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, first I want to say to everybody, welcome to the meeting. Thank you for coming out. We had a beautiful day today, and we got some great things coming down the pike.
Thanks.
I have nothing. Good.
Nothing to add. Bob?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say it is a beautiful day out there, but I'd like to say this Saturday I had the opportunity to watch a group of young people, the mayor's youth council. They're some amazing young people. They were really engaged. Ms. Zirko gave them a demonstration of a presentation of what the town is all about, and I couldn't believe how engaged they became. I think some of us is going to have some problems down the road because they were very interested. You got to see these kids in action, and I think that they're going to take this and a lot farther than we thought they would, but it was very interesting. The questions, they've been paying attention. They have been watching us. They have been watching this town, and it showed in that meeting. So if you guys get a chance to check them out, y'all need to check them out because these young people are something else. I was amazed at that. I enjoyed it. Thanks for letting me be a part of that.
Yes, sir. And I was going to give a report on that. Like I said last Saturday, we did have our second Mayor's Youth Council. Appreciate Ms. Zirkle. She talked to them about community development, economic development, planning. Kind of took them through a planning exercise, and they came up with a lot of good questions, a lot of good ideas. I think the theme was kind of, okay, we need to do some work in our parks, especially Liberty Lake Park, and I think we all recognize that, but they've got some good ideas for out there. And then, of course, trying to attract some businesses that are more catered to young people, and we had to kind of educate them a little bit that the government can do all we can to try to recruit businesses, but, you know, those are not the types of things we actually actively engage in directly, I guess is the way to say it. Then we left here, and we went down to the fire department, and unfortunately, Chief Stone was at the, I think, the Firefighters Association convention.
And one of our firefighters was awarded Firefighter of the Year.
Correct. And so Deputy Chief Matt Scott kind of took over for Chief, and he did a really great job. I mean, we spent probably 45 minutes down there, and he engaged those kids, and they asked a lot of questions. It was, I mean, they're really into it. Look forward to it. The next one is going to be on March 11th. DW is going to take us around and talk about all the things the Public Works does. So, you know, it's from 10 to 12. So, you know, I don't know if anybody's interested. Let me know. But we got to be careful. Mike, I just want to make sure we don't get. We have to limit that to make sure we don't have 3 on something like that.
If you are, generally speaking, the rule is that if you are just there to receive comments or to attend the same thing, you don't need to advertise,
Okay.
even if there's 3 or more of you there. However, you then at that point need to be careful to police yourselves that 3 of you don't sit down. Let's say you go to a dinner together, 3 of you don't sit down and wind up talking about town business.
Okay.
But if all 7 of you went to the VML conference and you all sat in the same sessions together, it's not a problem.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure.
Just general rule.
Yep. So anyway, that's going to be from like 10 to 12 on the 11th, and then the next month, hopefully I'll work with John Wagner, and we get a tour of some of the electric facilities. So there'll be some couple other opportunities too, and then at the end they'll come and make a presentation to us. So that's what's going on with that. Really exciting stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll move on to the next thing. Report. One other thing, real quick. We are having a town-county meeting next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. CG and I are going to be meeting with
5:30.
5:30. Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, 5:30.
It's the new 7.
The new 7. So we'll be meeting with the chairman and the vice chairman, Tammy Parker and Edgar Tuck and Robert and Bart. So we've gotten some topics together, but if there's anything you think we need to discuss with them, either let Bart or myself know. It's more than likely on our list, but there might be something we've not thought of. So anyway, just wanted to pass that along. All right. Next item is the report of council committees. I don't believe we've had any committees since the last meeting. And revisions to agenda, I would like to add one closed session item under the, which one is that, Bart? Is that the real estate section? To discuss Edmund Street Park.
It's a lease.
I'll give you the right section in a couple of minutes.
Okay, that's fine. When we get to, but I do want to add a closed session to discuss Edmund Street Park, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So anyway, with that, we'll open the, is there that as a revision to the agenda? Yep, okay. Next item is to open the public hearing. The first public hearing is an approval of issuance of bonds by the Harrisonburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority for renovation of the John Early Apartments. Mr. Warner, would you?
Okay. Notice is hereby given that the Town Council of the Town of Bedford, Virginia, will hold a public hearing on the request of John Early Seniors Housing, LP, a Virginia Limited Partnership, whose address is 1706 Grandin Road, Southwest, Roanoke, Virginia, for the issuance by the Harrisonburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority, whose address is 286 Kelly Street, Harrisonburg, Virginia, of up to $6,715,000 of its revenue bonds to finance or refinance a portion of the cost of acquiring, constructing, renovating, rehabilitating, and equipping an approximately 78-unit multifamily residential rental housing project for seniors known as John Early Apartments, consisting of 7 two-story residential buildings and 1 one-story community building, and other site work and community-related improvements, all located on approximately 12.13 acres of land in the town of Bedford, Virginia, at 718 Blue Ridge Avenue. The project will meet the requirements of a qualified residential rental project within the meaning of Section 142D of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. The project will be owned by the borrower or an entity affiliated with and controlled by or under common ownership with the borrower, and the borrower is John Early Seniors Housing LP. The public hearing, which may be continued or adjourned, will begin at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 28th, 2023, before Town Council and Council Chambers. The proposed private activity bonds will not pledge the credit or the taxing power of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the town, the city of Harrisonburg, Virginia, the authority, or the Bedford Redevelopment and Housing Authority, but will be payable solely from the revenues derived from the borrower and pledged therefore. The public hearing will provide an opportunity for interested persons to be heard and communications and writings to be received and considered. Anyone may attend the meeting in person and express an opinion on the issuance of the bonds. The hearing shall provide the fullest opportunity for the expression of opinion, for argument on the merits, and for the introduction of documentary evidence pertinent to the issuance of the proposed private activity bonds.
All right, with that, I'll open the public hearing. We have by Zoom Tina Neal with McGuire Woods LLP and Mike Graff with Perseverance Capital, who is also associated with this. Did you all want to make any comments during the public hearing phase?
Yeah, I'm happy to make a couple remarks, and then if the counselors have questions, Tina and I are happy to try to answer your questions, and members of council. My name is Mike Graff. I'm a bond lawyer with McGuire Woods, and I'm joined tonight by Tina Neal from Perseverance Capital. And Tina and I are working with Virginia United Methodist Housing Development Corporation, and it's a nonprofit provider of affordable and senior housing. And they're the sponsors of the project that was described in the public hearing, which is the financing of the acquisition and rehabilitation of the John Early Seniors apartments in the town. And the financing is going to involve the project taking on some debt and taking on equity investment through the federal housing tax credit program. One of the requirements to get that federal affordable and senior housing incentive is to have tax-exempt revenue bonds as part of the financing package, and that's the reason that we're before the town council this evening asking your consent to have the Harrisonburg Housing Authority assist us with this financing of the rehabilitation of John Early seniors, the apartments there. The Harrisonburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority has a statewide conduit revenue bond program, and they're a very frequent and efficient issuer of these sorts of tax-exempt revenue bonds. The Virginia United Methodist Housing Development Corporation folks have another project that's going on in another jurisdiction at the same time that will involve a lot of the same financial players, and so it made sense for efficiency's sake to take both of those projects through the Harrisonburg Authority. And one of the legal requirements for us to proceed with the financing is to make sure that we've informed both the Bedford Redevelopment and Housing Authority and you as the town council about the project and get your blessing to move forward. And that's the purpose of the public hearing and the proposed resolution that's before you this evening. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and Tina knows a lot more than I about sort of the on-the-ground details of the rehab project, and between the two of us, we'd be glad to try to answer any questions you may have about this matter.
Okay, what we'll do is, we'll see if anybody's got any questions when we get to the action item on it, if that's okay with you. We'll get there pretty
Certainly.
quick. Was there anybody else that wanted to speak on this public hearing? No? All right, the public hearing's closed, and we'll open the second public hearing on the proposed private activity bond financing for the John Early Senior Housing by the Harrisonburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority, as required by IRC 142.
Notice is hereby given that the Town Council of the Town of Bedford, Virginia will hold a public hearing pursuant to Section 36-23 of the Code of Virginia of 1950 as amended to determine whether dwelling accommodations in the Town of Bedford can be significantly improved and made substantially safer through the exercise by the Harrisonburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority of its powers to issue bonds for the benefit of facilities located within the territorial boundaries of the town. The public hearing, which may be continued or adjourned, will begin at 7:00 p.m. on Tuesday, February 28th, before the Town Council and Council chambers. The public hearing will provide an opportunity for interested persons to be heard and communications and writings to be received and considered. Anyone may attend the meeting in person and express an opinion on the issuance of the bonds. The hearing shall provide the fullest opportunity for the expression of opinion, for argument on the merits, and for the introduction of documentary evidence pertinent to the issuance of the proposed private activity bonds.
All right, with that, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to make any comments on this public hearing? No? All right, we'll close the public hearing. And we'll move into, if you don't, Bart, do you think, would it be okay to move these guys up in front of you guys real quick? I think we can get rid of that real quick and then do your presentation. Would that be okay with you all? Absolutely. Okay. All right, so let's just move that ahead of them since they're on the Zoom, and we can, I think, get through this pretty quick, and then we'll have you done the presentation from the Virginia Investment Board. All right, so we have a resolution to approve the issuance of bonds by the Harrisonburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority for the John Early Apartments. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So we have a motion, a second. While they're here, do they have any questions? I have just a few, but does anybody else have any?
I have one.
All right, sir.
So when do you expect this project to be completed?
Did you have a question?
The goal of this is Tina Neal from Perseverance Capital Advisors. So the goal for this is to submit an application for an FHA loan this spring, and we would hope to go to closing on that probably in the July-August timeframe. So construction would begin in the fall as quickly as we can close that up.
Thank you.
Tina, could you just maybe give us just a brief summary? You don't have to get into a lot of detail, but what it is you all are doing in this I guess it's a purchase and a rehab. I know those are some older units, and so you don't have to go into a lot of detail, but just a brief kind of synopsis of what is you all are looking to do there.
Sure, no problem. So the Virginia United Methodist Housing Development Corporation is my client. They've developed affordable seniors projects all over Virginia since 1976. They're very mission-driven. They're a nonprofit entity. And in combination with their 501c3 Momentum Housing, they're going to re-syndicate this project, which they have previously been involved with. So there will not be any sort of land disturbance. This is really just a substantial renovation of those units that are there today. And those tenants are already, there. There won't be any sort of major change. It will still be an elderly facility for 62 years and older. And it's supported by a half contract from HUD, and through Virginia Housing, we will get low-income housing tax credits if we move forward with this bond issue that will help as part of the equity for the project. So there will be substantial renovation of exteriors, windows, doors, roofs, appliances, all new cabinetry, all new plumbing fixtures. Everything will be designed to be as energy efficient as possible. And just really, deliver a really nice product for the elderly that live in this facility right now.
Is there, can I ask this?
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah, just for curiosity, these units, is there an average cost to the consumer? Do you have, you have seniors, what are they paying to be in these units?
Sure. So the way it works is HUD has extended a housing assistance payment program for this property, and that's been in place for, over 15 years already. They're going to renew that contract. So HUD actually sends project-based money to this community to subsidize the rents. So the rents themselves will be, I believe it's $840 and $900 for the 2 bedrooms, $840 for the ones. But the tenants don't pay that. They only pay 30% of whatever their eligible income is. So regardless of sort of the market rent on those units, they only pay what they're able to pay, and HUD pays the remainder through this HAP contract.
Okay.
So it's really great for the tenants that live there because their payments won't change, but it will allow us to substantially renovate these units, which are in need of it. It was about 16 years ago the last time that these were substantially renovated and put into good shape. So we're excited about the opportunity to serve this community, which we've been involved with for many years in the past.
So this will be strictly for the tenants that's already there?
And new people that come in, so,
But I
people
mean,
do
what- I
leave
guess what-
occasionally. Mhm.
I guess what I'm trying to say.
As long as they can meet the income requirements, they can,
Okay.
it will be available for the public to rent as long as they meet the income requirements.
I guess what I should have asked was, there's no plans to add additional units? You're just gonna renovate the units that are there?
Yes, that's correct. It's just the ones that are there. There's not an ability to add to this property.
Mr. Sherman?
Yeah, in reading the action form we have, it says, John Early Senior Housing LP, an affiliate of Bedford United Methodist Housing, which is current owner of John Early Apartments. But you said, and maybe this is just a typo, it says, I think you said Virginia United Methodist Housing. So is this a statewide organization, or is this our?
Yeah, they're two different things. So Virginia United Methodist Housing Development Corp. is the developer, and they are also a partner. Bedford United Methodist Housing is the existing partnership that owns John Early Apartments currently.
So
And they will be selling, if you will, to the new limited partnership, which is called John Early Seniors Housing LP.
Who owns that? Who's the buyer?
That will be controlled by Virginia United Methodist Housing Development Corporation. They will own 100% of the general partner, which is about 0.01% of the overall partnership, and the remaining 99.99% will be owned by a fund created by KHEC, which is a nonprofit syndicator of low-income housing tax credits. They're very active in the Southeast and have been a longtime partner in this project and other projects that the Methodist group has been working with.
So why are we going through Harrisonburg, or why are they going through Harrisonburg? And I don't see how Harrisonburg benefits from this. I'm just wondering.
Well, Harrisonburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority is just a conduit authority, and they have a statewide program, so they're really set up to issue housing bonds. I don't know the number, but they are a very frequent issuer. The market understands their name, and they've got a very good reputation, very easy to work with, and very efficient. So they're also a low-cost provider, which helps us with this community to make this financing work, is to keep the cost down.
So the Harrisonburg Redevelopment Authority could benefit financially.
Well, the only way that they would benefit is just the small amount of fees that they charge to issue the bonds.
Okay. All right. I was just wondering why they are reaching down here into Bedford.
Mike, do you have?
Yeah, they go all over the state.
Yeah, that was kind of the biggest question, because I don't know if anybody's been, I know I haven't seen one of these type of deals in front of council since I've been on here, so, can you just maybe just explain a little bit, once again, why we have to take any kind of action on this?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. Graff really explained a lot of what I had to say. The very, very short, very, very simple answer is that under both the Internal Revenue Code and the Virginia Housing Authority's law, they have to ask us permission before they can just do that.
Right.
The Internal Revenue Code requires the governing body of the locality in which an affordable housing project, which is going to qualify for the tax-exempt private activity bonds, to have a public hearing. Complicated reasons they need to have that advertised twice. The Housing Authority law requires that both the Housing Authority and the governing body of the locality in which the project's supposed to be to approve it, but they only need to advertise once, because why would the General Assembly and Congress ever get their act together on something like that? So in short, they need to ask us permission. If you go back historically far enough, the original vision probably was that each individual redevelopment and housing authority would do their own, and there are redevelopment and housing authorities that do issue their own bonds. I think Roanoke has done a few, but of course they're a huge redevelopment housing authority with a lot of money. I know that there was one where we did one with the Salem EDA. They don't have a redevelopment and housing authority, so their EDA did it instead. But the bottom line is that they need to ask our permission. Our redevelopment and housing authority has agreed to this. They had no problem with that. This is a highly efficient way of doing it because, as Mr. Graff and Ms. Neal said, the Harrisonburg setup is it's a well-trod path, well-oiled pipeline that they can do it. I don't think that, having met with our redevelopment and housing authority, I don't think that they had any interest in being involved in this deal whatsoever. So this is really checking off the right things and making sure that nobody in the town of Bedford actively objects to carrying out this project. And that's why I thought it was particularly important for us to make sure Ms. Neal was available to tell you any particular facts about the project and what they were actually going to do that might be a problem. In any event, there may someday be some situation where our redevelopment and housing authority wants to do a deal like this, but for today, certainly the recommendation from staff is that there's no reason why we shouldn't say yes to this.
I don't see any risk.
There's no liability.
None of our credit is on the line in any way, shape, or form. Our name is not even involved, so there's not like if these things go sideways, somebody's going to say, yeah, that town of Bedford Town Council and Redevelopment and Housing Authority, they're bad eggs. We're just not involved.
I thought it'd be good to get that out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like I said, we appreciate your willingness to invest in this project in the town, and I appreciate that, and providing good quality, affordable housing for our seniors in our community. So we do appreciate that, and look forward to y'all having a successful project. So, does anybody else got any comments, questions? No? All right. Let's go ahead and roll call.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hardwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Sherman?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries, all members voting aye.
Thank y'all once again. Sorry I got those names flipped and titles flipped around, but I appreciate y'all being with us this evening.
Thank you very much, sir. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your help. Bye-bye.
All right, so next item flipped on the agenda is a presentation from the Virginia Investment Pool. So we got Mr. Lauterberg here. Is that correct? All right, so would it be better for us to maybe come down there so we can see the PowerPoint?
I think if you have the presentation in front of you, I think that's fine.
All right.
Okay, so thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm Bob Lauterberg, I'm Managing Director of VML Vaco Finance. Steve Molroy, another Managing Director with our program, is here with me tonight. And it's my pleasure to talk about the Virginia Investment Pool. This is a program that has gotten a lot of attention recently. It's a pool that local governments use to manage their operating funds. And as you know, we've gone through several years with extremely low interest rates, where it's just very hard to try to earn anything on your idle cash that the town, the localities typically have. Now the situation has changed. The interest rates have risen, and not all banks and institutions are reflecting that necessarily in the rates that they're paying to depositors, but we are. And the interest rate that we pay through Virginia Investment Pool on a stable value fund, like a money market fund, today is 4.75%. So we've got a lot of interest from local governments in a program that's already quite well known and fairly large. So I'm going to give you some background on this program and then close with how the town can join if you choose to do that. So let's see. I'm pointing where again? Okay. All right, so this program, Virginia Investment Pool, is offered through VML VACO Finance. That's the financial services arm of the Virginia Municipal League and the Virginia Association of Counties. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, and so we prepared a list of all the localities, authorities, and other entities that have used our program since it got started back in 2003. And there are 308 entities listed on this page. Bedford is listed. It's actually, the city of Bedford at that time was one of the first localities to use our program. We also do financing, and we actually financed the visitor center for Bedford almost 20 years ago. The Virginia Investment Pool was established in 2013 by local treasurers and investment officers, and this was an initiative of VML and VACO. They appointed a working committee to design a program that was really responsive to local governments. And so we got the program started at that time, and then subsequently in 2017, the General Assembly adopted legislation specifically recognizing jointly administered investment pools like this one. We're actually the only jointly administered investment pool, but recognizing that in the state code. That made it a little bit easier for elected treasurers to join by signing an agreement. And so it's a streamlined process. VIP is organized as a governmental trust under Internal Revenue Code Section 115. So it's governed by a board of trustees who are elected by participants. And that's important to know about VIP. This is not a product. This is really a mechanism or a vehicle for local governments to jointly invest. And we think there's a number of advantages to that. Number one, because this program is owned by the participants, it's very accountable to treasurers or investment advisors, whoever's assigned that responsibility in the local government. We offer 2 highly rated portfolios, and there's continuous oversight. So you have this board of trustees that is overseeing the fund, our staff, the investment manager, and all the participants. There's a lot of eyes on what we do. We have a consistent record of competitive returns, and I think you'd be hard-pressed. I'd be careful about making a claim because the interest rates change from time to time, but I think you'd be very hard-pressed to find any safe investment vehicle that's paying the kind of return that we pay today. And then we are very customer-focused and user-friendly. As of the end of last fiscal year, we had $2.2 billion in Virginia assets, Virginia local government assets invested in this program. 147 participating political subdivisions, and I think we're over 150 today with these very attractive interest rates. This is a list of the Board of Trustees, gives you a flavor for who's participating in the program. These are elected by participants in VIP. In this area, Evelyn Powers, the treasurer for the city of Roanoke, is our vice chairman. For investment management, this is very important. The firm that manages the funds is called Public Trust Advisors. This is an SEC registered investment advisor. It's a top-rated fund manager from all across the country. It's one of the top-rated. They have over $50 billion in assets under management, and they focus on this space. They focus on managing fixed income investments for state and local governments. Now, this firm was selected by our Board of Trustees as we did a nationwide search of fund managers, and this firm we felt was the best-in-class provider of this service. Participants in VIP execute their transactions through a secure online transaction and reporting portal. And what this is a way that your staff can go online and move funds between accounts that have been pre-registered with VIP. So these are all funds that are in the name of the town of Bedford. So you may want to connect VIP to your checking account and use this for cash management. You may want to connect it to other funds that the town is responsible for. You might have a park and recreation fund, and that could be set up as a separate fund so that you could transfer between these accounts. All this is very secure. This is not a portal where you could transfer funds outside of the town of Bedford. These would all be town of Bedford accounts. Even so, we provide multiple levels of security. This is really kind of a state-of-the-art kind of portal. Now, there are two investment portfolios that we offer. One is the VIP Stable Net Asset Value Liquidity Pool. This is for funds that may be needed immediately and where maintaining a stable net asset value is very important. You don't want to see any fluctuation in the value of your investment. So for day-to-day cash management, you can't beat something like this because you put $1 in, you get $1 back out plus interest. It's very flexible. You can access these funds on a daily basis. We also offer VIP 1 to 3 year high-quality bond fund. And this is a fund that's invested longer term in order to achieve a higher return over long periods of time. But with this fund, there is some volatility. So this is like investing in any kind of market-based investment. You can expect some amount of volatility. So you would use it for funds that don't have to be, stable net asset value. I'll go into that a little bit further in a moment. Let me start though by talking about the stable net asset value liquidity pool. These are some of the features of this fund. A very competitive yield, as I said, is 4.75 today. Stable value. This is rated by Standard & Poor's. S&P gives it its highest rating, a AAA rating. And when a fund like this is rated by Standard & Poor's, this is an ongoing process. S&P actually monitors this fund on a weekly basis. Reports are submitted to S&P weekly so that they can measure the liquidity of the funds and the level of assets and so forth. This offers daily liquidity, so when you put funds in the stable value pool, you can access them within a day. As long as you put in a request by 2 p.m., you can access your funds that day. There's no minimum balance or account maintenance fees. You can establish separate accounts, as I said, for different purposes. Also, it's a great tool if you're financing projects and you have, say, bond proceeds that you're going to put into an account and then spend over a period of time. Because as you may know, the IRS has regulations that say if you have bond proceeds and they're earning interest, that interest can exceed the interest that you're paying on the bonds. That would be considered arbitrage. And now we're getting into a time where this is becoming more of an issue because these short-term investments are paying, can pay a good rate of interest. So you want to maximize what you can earn, but if you go above the amount that you're paying on the bonds, then you need to calculate that and rebate it to the federal government. In the past, it's been just a pain to do. You usually had to hire a firm to run calculations to do that. Today, you don't have to do that if you're in Virginia Investment Pool. We do that as part of our service. There's no cost to do that arbitrage monitoring on an annual basis, and then that provides you the information for reporting as required by the Internal Revenue Service. So taking a headache and kind of remove that if you're doing any kind of financing. Yes?
So, on that, to avoid that risk of arbitrage, do you all kind of, if there's a bond proceeds out there or whatever, I mean, can you help us manage that risk so that we don't run into that situation? Or is it just, if it goes into that pool, it's whatever your return is and you're taking that risk that you may have arbitrage?
There's no reason not to earn the most that you can on the funds. That's desirable. If you're paying, I don't know, 4%, 5% on the bonds, you want to earn 4 to 5%. Then those funds, while they're sitting there unused, waiting for a project to develop, there's really no cost to you because you're earning, the cost of money. So you want to maximize it, but at the end of 5 years, you rebate anything above that.
Okay.
So over that 5-year period, you may have periods where you're above the 4% on your bonds, and then may have years where you're below 5%. So you want it to come out close to 4%. But if you're over, you don't have to sweat it because we'll tell you, through a report what you need to rebate to the government. Make it pretty simple.
Okay, thanks.
This page 10, this shows the history of our interest rate just over the past year. So if you look at the beginning of 2022, interest rates were so extremely low, close to 0%. And the beautiful thing about VIP is that as interest rates in the market have risen, the interest rates on VIP go right up along with that. So if you look at the federal funds rate that gets reported, the Federal Reserve has been active in raising interest rates. Our rate has moved right in line with the Federal Reserve. A lot of other vehicles for funds, like your checking account or regular bank accounts, they were also close to 0% at the beginning of last year. But when you look at them now, typically they're still like down in that range. It may take a long time before they start moving higher. With VIP, you're going to see that movement in interest rate almost immediately. So that's the stable net asset value fund. In an environment like this, where you're seeing interest rates rising, that's a very attractive fund because you're maximizing what you can earn on those funds. You get this automatic adjustment that takes place. Over long periods of time, the 1 to 3 year bond fund has paid a higher return over longer periods. And because over longer periods, interest rates aren't just rising in one direction, they're rising and falling, they're basically stable in other periods. So over long periods, the 1 to 3 year fund is a good complement, and that's why we offer these two portfolios. So what this is a high quality, short-term, fixed income fund where you can access your funds twice a month. So we're investing in longer-term securities than the liquidity pool. We can invest out to 5 years with this. But even so, you can access your funds twice a month. So they're not tied up for years at a time. So you're getting the benefit of a better return, but still have access to funds. Now, the portfolio is marked to market twice a month. That means it's valued twice a month. So the market value of the securities in the portfolio, they'll fluctuate, within a narrow range, and that's valued or marked to market twice a month as you access the funds. This fund is rated AA+. It has a lot of federal government securities in it. It's considered a very conservative fund. So there's a lot of federal government. The federal government's rated AA+. This fund is also rated AA+. It also has a rating from Standard & Poor's of S1. You may not have heard of this rating before, but S1 is a measure of volatility, S1 being the lowest level of volatility for a short-term fixed income fund. The gross market yield on the 1 to 3 year fund today is 4.34. Now that's a little bit lower than the liquidity pool, and that's going to happen from time to time, especially as interest rates are rising rapidly, like we're seeing, because it's invested in longer-term securities. So it takes longer for those securities to roll off and be replaced at higher rates. So again, this is one you want to look at for longer-term investments. Over the long term, history shows that it pays a little bit higher rate. This is how that fund is invested. So you want to know what you're investing in. So we took 2 points in time because how it's invested will change in different kinds of markets. June 2018 was a lot different market than June of 2022. Of course, in the last year, there's been concerns about recession. There's been more volatility in the market. Just an unsettled market, I would say. So back in 2018, it was more attractive to invest in things like corporate notes and federal agency securities and so forth. In a market like this, our fund managers has shifted to be a little bit more conservative, putting more into treasury notes and a little less into federal agencies and corporate notes. We also can invest in municipal bonds and some other things, but those are going to be the major investments. It gives our participants peace of mind knowing that there's a fund manager who's actively managing the portfolio, taking into account market conditions. So I mentioned volatility. So what do I mean by that? What can we expect? So when you invest longer term, historically, you've been able to achieve a higher expected rate of return. And the trade-off of that is a little bit more volatility. So under the Virginia Code, you can invest out to 5 years. Now, the Virginia Code is very conservative. It's very conservative. You look at some other states, Florida, for instance, local governments can put money into stocks and just all kinds of things, international investments. Whereas in Virginia, we take a much more conservative approach. So
What's
here-
the average length of the underlying, I guess, duration, or is it
In our fund, it's a 1 to 3 year duration.
1 to 3 year duration?
Uh-huh.
Okay, you don't do much of the higher in the 5 year.
The fund manager, sometimes, if market conditions warrant it, he might go a little bit farther out, but he'll balance that with
That's
shorter
right.
term as
So,
well.
Okay.
So that really ties into this chart. So under the Virginia Code, you can invest out to 5 years, and but always in fixed income securities, so bonds, basically bonds and notes. And so this is the trade-off. The 3-month Treasury bill is kind of a proxy. That's kind of it's similar to our stable net asset value fund in that it's invested very short term, very high quality. So a fund like our liquidity pool over the last 10 years paid about 1.28%, the annual return. As you go farther out, if you went all the way out to invested in 3 to 5 year treasuries, which you're allowed to do in the state code, the return over the last 10 years was annually about 2.59%. So that's a nice return. But look at the boxes there. This tells you how many quarters there was a negative return. So for the 3-month Treasury bill, 0 negative quarters. So that's how we're able to maintain a stable net asset value, because we're investing short-term, high quality. As you go out 5 years, you have to accept more volatility, and over the last 10 years, about 40% of the quarters, so there's 40 quarters in 10 years, so about 16 of them, there was a negative return. So our 1 to 3 year fund is right in the middle, where we think there's a sweet spot. A nice bump in terms of return, 1.8%, but only 20% of the quarters were negative. So less volatility, but still a better return. The last 10 years were very low interest rates. If you go back 20 years, the difference would be more like a 4 percentage point between those. So these are both good tools to use, but they both have their purpose. And what that is, I think, is illustrated on this chart. So the town of Bedford, and any well-run community, maintains a fund balance that's there. It can be used in emergencies, but you don't plan to spend it down to 0. You maintain a fund balance. And a rating agency, the first thing that they look at when they analyze your credit is what kind of fund balance do you maintain, because that's what provides protection for unforeseen events. So in this chart, that core balance represents the fund balance that you expect to maintain from year to year. So because those are funds that you're maintaining, that's a good source of funds to put into the 1 to 3 year high quality bond fund, because there could be a little bit of volatility there, but you're not so concerned, because you're focused more on the long term. Over long periods of time, that volatility kind of washes out. There'll be some up quarters and down quarters, but over the long term, you'll see a lot of mostly stability. Now, at the top of this is your funds that are more volatile. You collect taxes, you spend the money, tax revenues come back in. There's this cycle of high balances and low balances. Those are funds you don't want to put in something that's volatile, because when you do that, when you go to pull the funds out to pay salaries and other expenses, they may have lost value in the short run. So you want to put that in a stable value fund like our liquidity pool. We don't really have to worry about that. So that's the two funds are the best of both worlds if you use them in this way, because you're maximizing the return you get on your liquidity, the funds that you need to keep liquid. You're also maximizing over long periods at a higher return the funds that you carry over for long periods. And that's what we set out to do, was provide a couple of funds that really cover the main requirements of local governments. So that's Virginia Investment Pool. We think it's a great vehicle, and I'll go into how you can join. If there are any questions so far.
That was one of my questions. So we're not participating in this right now.
Right.
So we don't have any funds invested.
Right.
Okay. Was there another investment pool that we maybe had some? Okay, so that's different than okay. All right. I would see Ann shaking her head. She's answering my question. I knew we had something invested, not a lot, but okay. So all right. So that answers my question. Okay.
I do have one question. I mean, it's very interesting, and I guess my question is, okay, do you all determine the amount of risk here? Like you were saying, the 1 to 3 year pool is the best, but that's where you would recommend putting Bedford in if we joined?
I'd recommend you use both pools. And again, I would put the cash that you use on a daily basis, maybe as a rule of thumb, any funds that you expect to use in the coming year, I would put those in the stable net asset value fund, because then you don't have to worry about any volatility. You know, there's no market volatility or change in value in the funds. You're just simply earning interest.
I guess long-term, this 2.59 would be a good investment if you were in for the longer term, I guess. Money that you don't think you're going to need immediately, even though there may be some fluctuation in the market.
Yeah, and you could do that. You could go out and you could buy 5-year treasuries.
Okay.
But those funds are invested for 5 years.
That's what I'm getting at, but yes, that's what I'm thinking, in that you would not have ready access to that.
Right.
But if you had the money, that would probably be a good
And another
investment.
thing too, you know, in the last few years, interest rates were so extremely low that you could have gone out and bought a CD that was paying 0.3% a year ago, and you'd go, gosh, that's a great rate, because if I put it in in a liquid investment, I'm only, my bank's only giving me 0.1%, maybe even less. So 0.3 sounded great, but now it's tied up there, and interest rates are at 4%. So you've given up a lot by locking it in that way. And both of these funds will move along with the market, so that you'll get the benefit of that.
So really, if you went that 5-year and locked it in at the 2.59, it could go up to where you might regret doing that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you might very well regret
Yeah.
being there. Well, you would regret it today, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because, you can go out and get, you can put it in a liquid
Get a better
investment,
return.
like VIP, and you're earning 475.
Yes.
Those funds, you're getting 200 basis points, 2 percentage points.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure I understood the timeline here and all that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's two vehicles that serve different purposes, and I think really, but I think they cover most of the needs that local governments have. Okay, I'm going to go to the last page. This is how to join VIP. And this is pretty simple. To join VIP, Town Council simply adopts an ordinance that authorizes your participation. Why is that? It's because we formed this under the joint exercise of power. So a lot of what VML VACO Finance does, we use the joint exercise of powers. We don't always want to run to the General Assembly and ask permission. If a local government has the authority to do something, it can do that jointly with other local governments, including investments. And so that's why we use joint exercise of power. It keeps the control of this in the hands of local governments. Now, we went a step farther, as I said, and we got authorization in the state code for jointly administered investment pools. But for the town to join, you would adopt an ordinance. And then once you do that, whoever you designate as chief investment officer, usually it's town manager or treasurer, simply executes a joinder agreement. In other words, it's an agreement to join the governmental trust with other localities. And then we set you up with an account, an online interface, and you're ready to go.
Any other questions? No? Thank you. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you very much. Hope you all will take advantage of this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Good to see you.
All right, let's see here. So we're back to, all right, the fiscal year 2023 non-competitive litter prevention and recycling grant.
This is a grant that's received on an annual basis by the Keep Bedford Beautiful Commission. Town of Bedford has been notified by DEQ of a total grant award of $6,302.50 for litter prevention and recycling program activities and the extended polystyrene campaign for the period of July 1, 2022 to June 30, 2023. Staff would like to request for the adopted budget to be amended to reflect the correct balance of revenue and expenditure, and tonight council is requested to approve the below budget amendment, which will appropriate budget to the general ledger accounts as follows: and a revenue increase in the line item identified as litter control grant of $3,817.50, and also in the prior year fund balance of $1,485, and an expenditure increase in the line item titled Keep Bedford Beautiful Commission of $5,302.50.
All right. We have a motion to approve the,
So moved.
Second.
all right, we got, any questions?
Question. On is this still, I know we gave, Keep Bedford Beautiful Commission amount, is this more added to what we already, or is this just the same amount?
It's the same amount. They're just some specific strings attached to how we use it this time.
Okay, I knew it was like 3,000 one time, I just wondered, I must have went up or whatever over the years or whatever, so
State's a little more generous this time.
that's cool.
Any other questions? No?
Who seconded that motion?
All right, roll call.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hardwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Sherwood?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries, all members voting aye.
All right, so we got a motion, need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 2.23711A5 of the Code of Virginia of 1950 as amended for discussion concerning a prospective industry where no previous announcement has been made related to a potential business or industry in the western part of the town. Do we need to go ahead and can we do both motions at the same time, or?
Yeah, we can do both motions at the same time as long as we keep the right people in the room at the right time.
Okay.
The other one, I think we decided was 2.23711 subsection A3 for discussion of the acquisition or disposition of real property.
Okay, A3. All right, so then we also need a motion. Is that acquisition or disposition? I guess that'd be acquisition.
I think it could wind up being both. There's a lot of things to talk about with that one, right?
Okay, all right, so closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711A3 of the Code of Virginia of 1950 as amended for the acquisition or disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position, and that concerns the Edmund Street Park. All right, so, we got a motion to go in closed session for those.
So-
Second?
We need to vote on each one separately?
No, you can vote on them
Okay,
together.
all right, so we have a motion and a second, so roll call.
Mr. Hardwick.
Aye.
Mr. Johansson.
Aye.
Mr. Sherlin.
Aye.
Mr. Stanley.
Aye.
Mr. Carson.
Aye.
Mr. Haley.
All right.
Mayor Black.
Aye.
Motion carries, all members voting aye.
So the first session will be just, I guess, Mary and